Welcome to Brunswick Now. I'm your host this month, Jim MacCallum, and this month we'll speak with Alise Edwards with the Early College High School about their programs and what the school is all about. Then we'll speak with London Gore, a World War II veteran who's made his home right here in Brunswick County. And finally, we'll meet with Fran Salone-Pelletier. She's the religious writer for the Brunswick Beacon. Stay with us for the next half hour as we get to know about our guests and hear about their stories.
Welcome to Brunswick Now, ATMC-TV, Channel 3, bringing you the best of Brunswick.
My guest is Alise Edwards of the Early College High School program. Alise, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Mr. MacCallum. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about the Early College High School program, and we'll go from there.
Okay. The Early College started in 2006. It's part of the redesigned high school initiative that we've faced in the country to provide a rigorous learning environment for students. We concentrate on students in the middle, and what that means is we look for students that have academic potential, but may not have been taught some of the strategies that they need to be successful academically. They may be the first in their families to go to college. And they may have an economic disadvantage. And we look for the middle kids, and we take them and put them in an environment with a lot of support, a lot of love, and a lot of a challenge to help them to advance academically.
Okay. And these students come from all corners of our county, is that correct?
Every part of the county, yes.
Okay. And what's the age at which they enter?
We take them in as freshmen. Our first class was a freshman class right out of the 8th grade. We started with about 85 kids. Our school is small. We will have no more than 400 students at any given time. You can apply as a freshman at a traditional high school and come in as a sophomore, but typically that's a freshman, incoming freshman or incoming sophomore. You can apply to be a part of the Early College High School.
Okay. As the term would indicate, the idea is that these kids can get college credits while in high school. Is that correct? Tell us more about that.
What happens is the first year, the freshman year, is like a boot camp year. This is when they learn organizational skills, active listening, strategies for completing math homework, how to actively listen in an environment where you have a professor who's lecturing for 85, 90 minutes and staying focused and recording content, how to write papers with pre-writes, the strategies that go with doing that, learning MLA format. We give them all of the basics that they will need to survive in a college environment. And then from the first year, the second semester, they take their first course, and this is the freshman students at the college level. So they start taking college level courses their first year. The second year they have more, and in the third year most of their courses will be college level. Good. And it's a 5-year school, so we have what we call super seniors, and they're in their 13th year, and they're the graduates, and basically you don't see them as much. We have connections with them, but most of their courses are college level.
And so our viewers will understand the students are located very close to the BCC campus. Is that correct?
Yes, we're in the Charlotte campus in the C building. The second floor is our floor, and we have the entire floor. So that's our high school. But the students do go out into the other buildings on campus for their college level classes.
How are they received among the older college kids?
It was interesting at first. They were like, oh my goodness, who are these young people in this college level class? But we've been there now for quite a while, and they're well received. Our students do extremely well in their classes, and so they've proven themselves, so there is not any animosity there. They do very well.
Now, you've already told us about the nuts and bolts skills that these kids need to succeed at the college level. Tell us also about the Dress for Success program.
Oh, our first year, Dr. Snyder put together a team in the summer of 2005, and we had these meetings all summer long figuring out how we're going to design this school. Sure. It's kind of like flying the plane while building it. And we had all of these great ideas on the table, and I'm from a business background, and so one of the suggestions was, why don't we have a Dress for Success? Because what I found with students is that they're not comfortable in business attire. And it's important to be able to dress appropriately when you're going for an interview.
Sure.
And so it was a way to get them comfortable in the clothing, to understand the purpose of why you dress a certain way, and to make that connection. So on Wednesdays, our students, freshmen, are required to dress for success, and we do check their attire to make sure it complies. And the spin-off on that, on Friday, we have our Firebird, well, I'm sorry, it's Thursdays, because sometimes we don't have classes on Friday. On Thursdays, we have our Firebird Thursdays, where they dress in school colors, which is red,
Great.
silver, and black.
Good, good.
So it's been very interesting. And as a note for validation, we had a student who was a graduate who graduated and went off to school that came back and said his first year there, he was required to dress for success. I said, isn't that wonderful?
That means a lot, doesn't it?
It meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
He was already ready.
Now, I know also that this is a unique school, and you're limited in the ability to offer extracurricular activities because you're focusing so much on these college-bound students. Has that worked out well?
We don't have traditional activities like sports, cheerleading, but we do offer such a rich environment of extracurricular activities. What we do is we involve our students at the beginning of the year. We ask them, what kinds of clubs are you interested in? We will, we have some great clubs. We have Science Olympiad.
Good.
We have the Rotary Interact Club.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Future Teachers of America. We have a Math Olympiad. It depends on what the student, it's student-driven. And we have a bowling league for the first time this year. We have students that go on Fridays to Planet Fun, and they bowl. So and we have a sports club. It's not traditional where we're competing, but we do have where students can play basketball or touch football.
So really, you do have some
We do.
extracurricular activities.
We have a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. Tell us about the STEM program, STEM.
Wow. STEM is new. I'm one of the STEM teachers. It is part of the focus in America to have our students concentrate and be more proficient in science, technology, engineering, and math.
That's the STEM.
That's the STEM. And what we do is we use the engineering design process to have them solve real-world problems. We're in an agricultural area, and our freshmen this year were our first STEM group. And what we did is we divided and looked at what are problems that we're facing right here in North Carolina. Hog waste, runoff, clean water, sustainability was the focus. How are we going to sustain life into the 21st century? Not just in our region, nationally and globally, because we've just reached the 7 billion people mark on the planet, and theoretically speaking, we can only sustain 9 billion people, so we had to incorporate that. We asked students, how are you going to solve the food problem? How are you going to solve, what are we going to do with all the waste? Where are people going to live? And they had projects that they had to do the research, they had to go through the process of having a theory, testing and proving, inviting people in from the community, talking to people and professionals in these environments that are doing this work to see if what they're thinking is viable. And then they have a culminating project at the end of the year.
Great. Now we're throwing some acronyms around. The other is the AVID program, the AVID program. Tell us about that also.
The AVID program is a wonderful curriculum for college preparedness and really just school preparedness. And what it is I've been teaching that now for the 6 years I've been at the early college. I'm licensed to teach in the career and technical ed area. And it is where we teach students strategies in writing, inquiry, questioning using the revised Bloom's taxonomy, collaborative group work. You have to learn to work with other people. You have to learn to work with people you may not like or may not know. And we have organization, how to keep up with your work. Where did you put it? We know you did it. Where is it? And reading. There are strategies to extracting information from reading. And so what we do is we put them through the intensive course, teach them the skills, and we expect them to apply it.
Okay. Focusing more on you than the students for just a second, what's your typical day like?
Oh my goodness. My typical day is I give my students what I call an overview sheet at the beginning of every Monday. They know exactly what to expect, all of the work that they're going to be expected to do, any tidbits and notes that they need to have, so I give them that. They know that. So when I come into the classroom, when I begin, I take roll and we have conversations about what we're going to do. and from there they go into their activities. Right now it's a little unusual because in the second semester, half of my students are in their college level course and the other half are with me. And then on the next day, on the Tuesday, they flip. And so I do the same thing for 2 days straight.
I know our viewers will want to make contact with the Early
Okay.
College High School program. Tell us a little bit about the location, which you've told us about, phone numbers if you have one, email address if you have one.
We are located through the Brunswick County Schools website, bcswan.net, and you can go to the schools tab and you can scroll down and find us. The school's number is 910-754-8565, and you know, we are at BCC's campus in Supply, and it's in the C building. Come by and see us. Give us a call. We welcome questions and information. We're there to help your child do better.
It's a great story you have to tell. Alise Edwards, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you
It's
so
really
much
been a
for
pleasure.
having me. I appreciate it
We
so
hope to
much.
see you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My guest is Mr. London Gore. Mr. Gore is a World War II veteran. Many of our viewers will remember the book of Tom Brokaw, who wrote that our World War II veterans are the greatest generation. And they are the greatest generation because they saved the world from tyranny. Mr. Gore, thank you for being with us today. We're honored to have you.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. Our viewers will first notice your unique hat. Tell us about the hat and what it means to you.
Well, when I first went into the service, we was in what you call the horse-drawn artillery. We did everything with horses, and sometimes we'd spend as much as 3 weeks out in the field with horses practicing war games. And that was the best part of my Army life that I enjoyed.
When we met a few days ago, I was surprised to know, and I think our viewers will be surprised to know, that in World War II, in the early part of World War II, horse-drawn artillery was actually a part of the Army.
That's a big 10-4, yeah.
That's interesting. And of course, I know later in your career, toward the end of the war, you spent time in Europe, in England, Germany, and France. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
I spent 161 days on the front lines in Europe, and I was working with General Patton in the 5th Armored Division, and we had been practicing for months to be General Patton's ghost troops.
Now tell us what the ghost troops were all about.
It was to go into battle with no news. No news could be reported about us. We were just secret-like. Our job was to go in and break through the front lines and then come back into the rear and establish another front lines. Once we get this job done, then other troops would come in and take our place, and we'd presume the same thing over again.
Okay. And so by then, of course, you were no longer with the horse-drawn artillery, you were with a tank.
We were in the horse-drawn artillery for 16 months, and when they took our horses away from us, we were actually mechanized then with trucks and small guns. But later on, in the desert of California is where we joined up with the 5th Armored Division, and I was transferred to tank. But the saddest day of my life in the Army was the day I had to tell my horse goodbye.
How about that? Great story. We talked for a while a day or so ago, and I was reminded of your last days in Europe when the war ended. Would you tell us a little bit? Was it a rainy day, and does that do you recall that day?
I can't exactly remember the last day. Well, in a way I do, when they told us the war was over. But during the last days, we had been given orders, and we were 45 miles from Berlin. We were given orders to be ready to take Berlin the next day, which 45 miles didn't mean much to us and our mechanized stuff. Okay, the next morning we were ready to go. And then we got orders. Our orders were canceled and the Russians was taking Berlin. But we also that day said, we're going to give you a little break. And so we got some Germans that we'd left behind. I think it was about 35 or 40 miles back behind. We'd bypassed a small German outfit. But when we cleaned them up, we were going to have a few days off. It didn't work that way. We got into one of the most terrible battles, and I thought that was the end of my time, but thank the good Lord that He give us a clear day. It stopped raining, and the Air Force came in and they saved us.
That's wonderful. Now, you told me a cute story about being in Europe and wanting to have some sardines. Tell our viewers about that. It's a nice story.
Goodness. About 4 weeks after we'd been in France, I had never wanted sardines so bad in my life as I did then.
That's great.
Because I always loved sardines. And so I wrote a letter home to Mama. And I didn't know there was a shortage on sardines back in the States. But Mama tried and she never could find any. So she wrote a letter to my aunt up in Laurinburg, North Carolina. And she tried, and finally she made contact at a restaurant. They let her have 3 cans of sardines. And during the time she was having this hard time, my first cousin, I remember she told me after I got back that Mama cried and she cried. And she went to this restaurant, and they let her have 3 cans. She put them 3 cans in the mail to me, and 3 days before I received the sardines, we had raided a German warehouse in France. And you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
It was loaded with sardines. And we all around that I could find, put sardines in the tank, and I'd eat them till I was sick of them. And them 3 cans come, I just sort of kept them for a souvenir.
How about that? Now, many of our viewers will know of the honor flights in recent months where World War II veterans have been hosted in Washington, D.C. They fly up, they fly back, and all of them have a special person that accompanies them. Our viewers will be surprised to know who your special person was that accompanied you to Washington, D.C. and back.
After the war was over, we came home. It was at night, landed in Jersey. Not one soul was there to greet us when we come in. But this trip to Washington made up for every bit of it.
That's wonderful.
My daughter, I was signing the last papers in Myrtle Beach to get on the honor flight. And they brought this lady up and tapped me on the back as I was signing the papers and said, "This will be your guide." And as I looked around, and then I turned back to finish my writing, I told them, I said, "You sure know how to pick them?" And I said, "You sure picked me a good-looking one." And when I was signing, it had dawned on me that was my daughter.
How about that?
And my daughter, I think she paid $500 just to go with me on the trip.
So she came here and then accompanied you to D.C. and back.
That's right.
That's a wonderful story. Our viewers will want to know about that. Now, you were a pilot for a number of years, is that correct?
From 1948, and I gave up flying in 87, I believe it was. Yeah.
And I'm covering some of these other items very quickly, but you've written some books and some poetry, is that correct?
That is right. Yeah.
I also understand you love to shoot pool.
Oh, man. I give them a rough time out at the senior citizens.
You're pretty good, I take it.
Well, I'm a average good pool shooter, yeah.
And you competed in the Brunswick County Senior Games?
Yeah, oh yeah, just won a gold medal.
How about that? How about that? Mr. London Gore, there's so much more to talk about with you. Each of you World War II veterans is a hero for us. We appreciate you. We'll always have prayers for you and the others that served in our war. And we thank you for being with us today.
Hey,
We've really enjoyed it.
I wish the churches would recognize us more than what they do. That's our last hope.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate
And
that.
I thank you for letting me be here today.
Thanks so much, Mr. Gore. My guest today is Fran Salone-Pelletier. Fran is the religion columnist for the Brunswick Beacon. Fran, thanks for being with us today.
It's my pleasure and my joy to be here.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about your work as religion columnist and what happened to cause you to get that position.
Well, I'll start with what happened to cause me to get the position, and that was back when Ben Carlson was editor of the Beacon, and I had written a letter to the editor sort of piece, and he evidently liked it and called me in and asked me if I would like to do this on a regular basis. And when I asked him how often he was anticipating that I would do this, he said, well, optimally once a week. And so I kind of said, well, I'll give it a try and see what happens. And went out and told my husband, and in his usual affirmative fashion, he looked at me, he said, do you know how many weeks there are in the year? I said, well, thank you for the affirmation. I'm going to try it anyhow. And so that's how I got started.
I was thinking about that, too. There's some mild amount of pressure to produce a column each week. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's they are inspired. I must say that, because I just get an idea and I go with it, and when it's finished, and I frankly do not remember it. Folks don't believe that, but I truly don't remember what I have written. So I am a firm believer that they are divinely inspired and they're meant to write what I'm writing. But there still is the pressure. You know, when
Sure.
I try to keep about 4 columns ahead. However, very often there are times when I end up by being just 1 week ahead, and I can tell, I get panicky, like I'm going to get writer's block and not have anything to write. But it always comes through somehow, some way.
That's great. Well, I know the readers of the Beacon are very appreciative of what you do each week.
I hope so.
Illness has been a part of your life, and I suspect has affected your spirituality. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I was very ill for the past 3 years, but much more significantly so in the last year. And point of fact, my husband was told to go home and make funeral plans. And he told the doctors that he would go home, but he was not going to make funeral plans because I was going to recover. And so last year at this time, I was not even able to walk. And
Wow.
This year I'm walking, can't run yet, and maybe won't be able to, but that's okay. And its effect has been profound on my life. I find that I am becoming much more compassionate, much more able to understand other people's abilities and disabilities. Where once I used to march ahead of my husband when we went on our walks, now I'm lagging behind, and I know how he felt when I'd say, come on, let's get going.
Sure.
So it has really had and also a profound effect on my writing. And
How so?
in that, I think that I am becoming much more sensitive and much more aware of the fact that the life truly is short. We always say it, but I have really entered into that process. And so it's like I have to write about meaningful things. They're just not going to be superficial. So in that sense, it has affected.
Sure.
And also, while I was ill in the hospitals, people were amazed that I continued writing for the Beacon. It was my salvation. It was a real lifesaver, because I was able to focus on something other than how I felt.
Right.
And again, become much more aware of my surroundings, of people who took care of me. A lot of things became more acute for me.
Sure. Now, you've been involved in several or more different ministries, have you not?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Well, I started off as a teacher, public school teacher, and went from there to being, in fact, I started an English as a second language program for the town of East Hartford, Connecticut, way back when this was not a known reality, and moved from there to religious education and used all that I had learned from teaching high school English to the ESL in terms of the religious education. Got a master's degree in theology with a heavy concentration in scripture. And so that has been my real joy, and it's evident obviously in the Beacon articles as well. Teaching has been at the core of my life since I was a little kid, as a matter of fact. And included in the teaching became the preaching when I was in religious education as a professional. And with the preaching came the writing, so it all linked together.
I see.
And I'm still doing that. I give retreats, do workshops, facilitate Bible studies. Those are, I absolutely love doing that kind of work. And it feeds me much more than ever I give anybody else.
Well, you've woven several careers into one very interesting life. Tell us about your family background and whether or not that has affected the rest of your life.
Well, I come from immigrant parents. Both my parents were born in Italy, so I'm first-generation American. They were not particularly religious in the way in which many people view religion. They were. My mother was a churchgoer. My father was not. We used to laugh that he would show up at weddings, funerals, and graduations, because we all went to parochial schools, all four of the children. But my father in particular, I'm the first of four, and my father in particular, though he really wanted a boy, was delighted in me. And I was able then, because of my father's constant, it was voiced and unvoiced, his statement that I could be and do anything I wanted to, if only I put my mind to it. And that really has permeated my life, because all the jobs that I have taken, I knew nothing about ESL and did that. I didn't know a lot about religious education and I did that. They've been adventures, and it's because of my father. I'm absolutely convinced.
That's a great link, adventures and remembering your father. Mm-hmm. Each of those various interests that you have probably involves a lot of reading. Do you have a particular interest in any type of book or any particular type of reading beyond those that you've already mentioned?
My husband laughs because he calls them junk novels, and they are, that I do, and I call it cleansing the palate, the way you would at a wine and cheese kind of party. I love the mysteries like John Grisham kind of things, Mary Higgins Clark, books that you don't have to really think about.
I bet
you love.
I bet you keep 2 or 3 books going all the time.
I absolutely do. I have about 4 going now.
That's great. Great. What are your hopes and plans for the future?
My hopes for the future, because I'm so deeply involved in the church, in the broad sense of the church, not just my particular denomination, is that the churches will get together. That one day we really will be one people. Whether we are Christian or non-Christian, no matter what denomination, all of the religions believe in some sort of God, whether they call it a higher power or Allah or whatever. And I truly, that's my dream, that's my hope, and that's what I talk about all the time.
Great. Our guest has been Fran Salone-Pelletier. Fran, we thank you so much for being with us here today. It's a great story and a great life that you've led, and hopefully there's much more that we'll see of you in the future.
I hope so too.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you for joining us this month on Brunswick Now. If you have any questions about the information you've seen on this month's show, please feel free to give us a call at 910-755-1770. Again, thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us next month for Brunswick Now on ATMC-TV.
Brunswick Now set is provided by Badcock Home Furniture and More, located on Main Street, Charlotte. Stop by today to find your perfect match.